What if I told you someone once sold the Eiffel Tower not once, but twice, and got away with it?
What if I told you he also scammed mob boss Al Capone and lived to tell the tale?
This is the story of Victor Lustig, a conman who didn't just break the law, he made a mockery of it. A man so smooth, so daring, and so inventive that his life reads like a Hollywood heist movie, except every word is true.
From swindling gangsters to outsmarting the Secret Service, Lustig's life was a masterclass in deception, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are not things of metal and stone, but a well-told lie.
Welcome back to The Curious Past. I'm Danny.
And I'm Shan. Today we're diving into the jaw-dropping career of a man who could charm you out of your wallet, your life savings, or an entire national landmark.
From Parisian hotel suites dripping in chandeliers to the bustling streets of New York to the inside of Al Capone's private office, Victor Lustig left a trail of bewildered victims and outrageous scams across 2 continents.
Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in Holstein, Bohemia, a rebellious and clever young man who saw little value in a traditional life. Fluent in several languages and with a sharp wit, he quickly decided his greatest talent was not an honest profession, but rather separating people from their money.
At just 19, Lustig left for Paris, drawn to its high society and casinos. It was there that a distinctive scar on his face, earned in an altercation with a jealous husband, became a permanent reminder of his dangerous lifestyle.
When he took to the high seas on the grand transatlantic ocean liners of the early 20th century, a new persona emerged, Count Victor Lustig. He was a master of disguise and a smooth talker with impeccable manners, using his charm to gain entry into the circles of the richest passengers.
Ocean liners sailing between Europe and America were the perfect hunting grounds. Wealthy passengers bored during the voyage? Check. Americans hungry for investment opportunities? Double check.
He would deceive them with elaborate schemes, such as a lavish but non-existent Broadway production, all while honing his hunter's eye for vulnerability. And it was on these voyages that he perfected his most famous con, the Romanian Money Box.
Lustig would select a wealthy mark and, in the utmost confidence, reveal his secret invention, a magical mahogany box that could duplicate currency.
For a demonstration, he'd slip a $100 bill into the box and, with a flourish, extract 2 seemingly authentic copies. In reality, the box was a cleverly rigged device, preloaded with a few genuine bills.
The catch? It needed time to work, giving Lustig ample opportunity to collect thousands of dollars for the box before disappearing.
He would then sell the box for a fortune, knowing that by the time the victim realized they had bought a machine that only produced blank paper, the count would be long gone.
When transatlantic sailings were suspended after the First World War, Lustig settled in New York. The Romanian box scam remained a favorite, and in 1922 he even fooled a Texan sheriff who later pursued him to Chicago.
In a classic twist of irony, Lustig convinced the sheriff he had used the precious device incorrectly, and in an act of generosity gave him a refund in counterfeit cash.
The poor lawman was later arrested for passing fake bills, but his description of Lustig's face and a telltale scar put the Secret Service on the con man's trail.
But maybe the heat was getting too close, or maybe the lure of Europe was too strong. But by 1925, Lustig returned to Paris. It was there that he read a seemingly innocuous newspaper article about the future of the rusting Eiffel Tower.
Originally built for the 1889 World's Fair, the tower was not meant to be a permanent structure. Its builders knew that the greatest challenge to its longevity would be corrosion, a fact that was becoming a serious and expensive problem for the French government, who were spending a fortune on its maintenance.
Seeing an opportunity in this public division, Lustig devised his most spectacular plan yet. Posing as the deputy director of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, he summoned 6 of the city's major scrap metal dealers to the iconic Hotel de Crillon.
He swore them to secrecy, claiming the government had made a confidential decision to demolish the tower due to the unsustainable cost of its upkeep. He, a humble public servant, was personally assigned to find a buyer for its 7,000 tons of iron.
Lustig took his clients on a limousine tour, pointing out the rust and repeating the popular argument that the hideous modern structure was an embarrassment next to Paris's ancient monuments. His calm demeanor and polished presentation were entirely convincing, especially to a young, eager, provincial entrepreneur named André Poisson. Lustig had found his prey.
At a private meeting, Lustig added the final twist. He told Poisson that as a government official, he needed a substantial bribe to guarantee the contract to him. Flattered and convinced he was getting a rare opportunity, Poisson handed over a bribe of 20,000 in cash, along with another 50,000 for the final contract.
After receiving the full sum, Victor Lustig calmly left for Austria. The story never broke. Too humiliated to report the crime, Poisson remained silent, allowing Lustig to return later that same year to try to sell the tower again. This time, however, a target grew suspicious and informed the police, forcing the Count to flee back to New York.
Back in the US, Lustig pulled one of his boldest stunts yet on Chicago's most feared gangster.
He traveled to Chicago and met with the notorious gangster Al Capone. Outlining a business proposition, Lustig asked for a $50,000 investment, with the promise of doubling it within 2 months.
Capone, always suspicious, agreed. Lustig took the money, stored it in a safe, and then waited. After 2 months, he returned the full amount, claiming the deal had fallen through. Capone, astonished by Lustig's honesty, was so impressed that he gave him $5,000 to get back on his feet. It was a simple ruse to gain a mobster's trust, and it worked flawlessly.
Lustig had just conned the king of the underworld without breaking a sweat.
By the 1930s, however, Lustig was getting too greedy. At the time, he was running a sophisticated, large-scale counterfeiting ring with chemist Tom Shaw, flooding the market with fake bills.
As a result, his name became more and more associated with the crime. But betrayal came from close to home thanks to a tip from his jealous mistress. His mistress, Billy Mae Shibley, jealous of another woman, tipped off authorities.
Secret Service agent Peter A. Rubano began a cat-and-mouse chase that lasted for months. On a Sunday night in May 1935, strolling down Broadway, Rubano spotted a familiar scar on the face of a man in a Chesterfield coat. It was the Count.
The chase was over. Rubano arrested Lustig and confiscated a key from him that led to a locker at Times Square subway station, where agents found $51,000 in counterfeit bills and the printing plates to make more.
Awaiting trial, Lustig was held in an escape-proof detention facility, but in a final act of showmanship, he escaped using a rope made of bedsheets, casually shimming down the side of the building disguised as a window cleaner before melting into the Manhattan crowds.
27 days later, he was caught in Pittsburgh and sentenced to 20 years in Alcatraz.
Victor Lustig died of pneumonia in March of 1947, a decade into his sentence. On his death certificate, his occupation was listed as apprentice salesman and counterfeiter.
His passing went virtually unnoticed, barely making the news, as if the conman had played his last disappearing act.
Yet, the man who sold the Eiffel Tower, conned Al Capone, and lived a life of audacious lies remains an enduring legend, a testament to the fact that, for some, the greatest crime is not what you do, but how you get away with it.
Victor Lustig's life is a masterclass in audacity, charm, and manipulation. He didn't just steal money, he stole trust, dignity, and sometimes entire landmarks.
He once wrote his own 10 commandments for conmen, with the first rule being, be a patient listener. It is this, not fast talking, that gets a conman his coups.
In a world of scams and schemes, Lustig's exploits remain unmatched, not because of the money he stole, but because of the impossible targets he chose, and the fact that, for most of his life, he got away with it.
If you enjoyed this dive into the life of the man who sold the Eiffel Tower, make sure to like this video, leave a comment about the craziest scam you've ever heard of, and subscribe for more unbelievable true stories from history.
Until next time, stay curious.